July 17th, 1943, the Southern Front, near Kursk. The dawn sky glows red over the endless Russian steppe, stained by the rising sun and the fires of war. The ground below is already shaking. Columns of T-34s rumble through the dust while German panzers answer with thunder from the west. Above them, the real hunters of Kursk prepare for battle. In a camouflaged airstrip carved into the wheat fields, Major Alexander Pokryshkin climbs into his Yak-9, the morning air cold against his gloved hands. His ground crew tightens the harness across his chest and slaps the fuselage twice for luck. The engine coughs, then roars to life, its propeller slicing the air with a metallic whine. He glances at the nose arc, a small white lightning bolt painted under the red star, then looks skyward. Somewhere above, the Luftwaffe waits. "Comrades," he calls over the radio, his voice steady, "we fight not for medals today. We fight for our soldiers below. Keep them safe. Attack from the sun. Trust your eyes, not your instruments." The Yak squadron lifts off the ground, engines roaring in unison. Within seconds, they're climbing into the morning haze, their shadows racing across the fields. At 12,000 feet, the radio crackles with static. Pokryshkin's wingman, Lieutenant Dmitry Glinka, spots them first, black specks against the glare of the sun.
WWII 190s, 10 o'clock high, 12 of them.
The Focke-Wulf 190s, sleek and deadly, dive in from altitude. Their pilots veterans of the Eastern Front, men who have fought since 1941 and lived through 1,000 duels. Their leader, Hauptmann Hans Dortenmann, adjusts his throttle, grinning beneath his oxygen mask. "Russen Schweine," he mutters. "Let's show them what the butcher bird can do." He pushes his stick forward. The German fighters scream downward like falling stars. The sky over Kursk erupts in seconds. Tracer fire rips through the air as the formations collide. The Yaks twist and roll, their tight turning radius giving them agility the heavier German planes can't match. But the FW-190s have power, brutal acceleration, and devastating 20mm cannon that can shred a Soviet fighter in a heartbeat. Pokryshkin pulls hard into a climbing spiral, the G-forces crushing his chest. A 190 flashes past his canopy, firing short bursts. He feels the rounds graze his tail. Close, but not close enough.
"Break right, Dmitry!"
Below him, Glinka rolls inverted and dives, leading a pursuing Focke-Wulf straight into Pokryshkin's gun sight. Pokryshkin squeezes the trigger. The Yak shudders as its 12.7mm Berezine machine guns blaze. The 190 takes 2 hits in the wing root. Smoke bursts from its fuselage, and the German pilot bails out, his parachute billowing like a white flower against the burning sky. "One down," Pokryshkin says flatly. "Reform. They'll come again." Far above, Dortenmann circles, scanning the chaos below. The Russians fight differently now, smarter, more disciplined. No longer do they charge blindly into formation. They climb, they feint, they strike in pairs. He frowns. "These aren't the same pilots we faced in 41, he says quietly. "They've learned." Below him, smoke trails cross the sky like scars. A Yak climbs vertically. Impossible, he thinks, but the new Yak-9s can handle it, their Klimov engines screaming for altitude. Dortenmann dives to intercept, lining up his shot. But the Russian doesn't run, he turns into him, head on. The 2 planes pass within meters, cannons flashing, the air between them exploding in sparks. Both aircraft break away, trailing smoke. No words, no glory, just survival. As the sun sets that day, Pokryshkin's squadron returns with half their number. They've downed 5 Germans, lost 3 comrades. In the distance, the rumble of the tank battle continues without pause, Kursk devouring men and metal on a scale beyond comprehension. Pokryshkin climbs down from his cockpit, oil streaking his face. He removes his helmet, the roar of battle echoing faintly through the evening air. He looks toward the west, toward the smoke columns rising from the front, and mutters,
"They came for the sky, but we will bury them in it."
The Red Air Force is no longer an afterthought. It's becoming a storm. April 1944. The skies over the Dniester River, eastern Ukraine. The spring thaw has turned the front into a sea of mud. Below, tanks grind forward through sludge and wreckage. Above them, 2 air forces duel for dominance over the broken plains of Eastern Europe. At 15,000 feet, Captain Ivan Kozhedub, flying his new Lavochkin Lay-5 FN, spots sunlight glinting off metal in the distance, a formation of FW-190s, their black crosses stark against the blue. He presses his throttle forward. The engine's roar fills his cockpit, shaking the frame. The Lavochkin isn't pretty, its nose thick, its wings blunt, but in Kozhedub's hands, it's an executioner. His radio crackles.
"Ivan, they're higher, don't climb into them."
He ignores it.
If they're above, they're in sight. That's all I need.
At the same time, Hauptmann Gerhard Barkhorn, a veteran of hundreds of sorties flying with JG-52, scans the horizon from his FW 190A6. His eyes narrow as he spots the oncoming Lavochkins. He smirks, confident. More Soviet fools. Keep altitude, gentlemen. Let them waste their energy coming up.
He's wrong.
The Leishi 5 FNs, fitted with new Shvetsov radial engines, climb faster than anything the Germans expect. Kozhedub's squadron rises through the haze like wolves breaking through snow. He spots the lead 190 and fires a short burst and too far. He adjusts, closes the gap. Hold your breath, he whispers, and don't miss. He fires again. A chain of white-hot tracer rounds tears across the German's wing. The FW 190 lurches, trailing black smoke, and plunges downward, its pilot never seen again. Kozhedub banks hard, diving after another. The G-forces slam into him, the world narrowing into the sight reticle. He fires. A second Focke-Wulf disintegrates mid-air. Two confirmed, he radios calmly. Above, Barkhorn curses. The Soviets aren't supposed to fight like this, not head-on, not so fearlessly. He rolls inverted and dives toward Kozhedub's tail, firing a burst that misses by inches. Kozhedub doesn't panic. He cuts throttle, letting the heavier German overshoot. Then, in a maneuver only experience can teach, he rolls right, kicks the rudder, and finds himself directly behind Barkhorn's 190. For 3 seconds, the hunter becomes the hunted. Kozhedub squeezes the trigger, the cannons blaze, and the German fighter explodes in a halo of wear. He's finished, Kozhedub mutters, pulling up through the smoke. His wingman's voice crackles through the static. How do you do it, Ivan? He laughs softly. Because I was taught by death, and death doesn't give second lessons. When he lands, the mechanics count the bullet holes in his fuselage, more than 30. One round is lodged in the propeller hub, inches from disaster. Kozhedub climbs out, sweat-streaked, eyes fierce. His commander meets him on the tarmac. 2 kills confirmed, that makes 47.
Kozhedub nods. He lights a cigarette, staring toward the west where the sun cool. The sun dips behind the smoke.
It won't be enough, he says quietly. Not until Berlin. Meanwhile, Luftwaffe headquarters, East Prussia. The reports arrive hourly now. Rising Soviet victories, dwindling veteran pilots, endless losses. The Eastern Front is bleeding the Luftwaffe dry. A staff officer spreads out photographs, burned wrecks of FW-190s, captured German pilots.
Herr Oberst, he says nervously, they're improving every month. Their tactics, their machines.
Barkhorn's squadron, once the terror of the steppe, is down to half strength. The Germans still hold technical superiority in some models, but the tide has turned.
In the air, experience now meets obsession, and obsession is winning. June 1944, G-44, near Iași, Romania. Pokryshkin and Kozhedub fly side by side for the first time, 2 aces whose reputations have become legend. Between them, they've scored nearly 150 kills.
Their Yaks and Lavochkins glitter in the morning light as they climb into the clouds. You take high, Pokryshkin says. I'll draw them down. You just don't steal my targets, Kozhedub replies, grinning. Moments later, German aircraft streak through the clouds, FW-190s and Bf-109Gs, their formation tight and precise. The duel begins again. Tracers carve the sky, engines howl, the air smells of burning fuel and cordite. In the chaos, Kozhedub dives through a formation of German fighters, scattering them like sparks from a forge. Pokryshkin climbs behind 2 109s, firing short, disciplined bursts. Both go down in flames. Within minutes, the sky belongs to the Red Air Force. For the first time in the war, the Germans retreat from a dogfight over their own territory. Pokryshkin levels off, the horizon burning orange ahead. They used to call us amateurs, he says. Kozhedub answers, now they call us something else. He pauses, listening to the hum of his engine. Survivors. The age of the Luftwaffe aces is ending. The Red Falcons of the East are rising. January 1945. Over Poland, near the Vistula River. The winter sky is the color of ash. Snow drifts across the shattered towns below, where Soviet tanks crawl westward through the ruins of occupied Europe. Above them, the final aerial duels of the Eastern Front rage in the cotton-thin air. At 22,000 feet, Colonel Ivan Kozhedub levels his La-7, the latest Soviet fighter, a machine of wood, steel, and vengeance. Its Shvetsov Ash 82FN radial engine howls like an animal, the propeller biting into the gray clouds. He wipes frost from his goggles and checks his instruments. On the horizon, black dots appear. German fighters. Not the weary retreating remnants of 1944, but veterans defending the fatherland itself. Among them flies Major Otto Kittel, one of the Luftwaffe's deadliest aces, his FW-190A8 marked with the black and white spiral of JEG-54. Kozhedub smiles grimly. Let's see if Berlin's Angels can still fly. He pushes the throttle forward. The two formations meet in a flash of gunfire and contrails. Tracers streak through the frozen sky like red meteors. Kittel dives, his 20mm cannons roaring, his FW-190 slicing through the Soviet formation with surgical precision. He clips one LA-7 in the wing, sending it spiraling down in smoke. But Kozhedub doesn't break. He rolls left, then climbs sharply, pulling into the sun. For a brief moment, his silver-gray fighter vanishes against the glare.
Then, a heartbeat later, he dives.
The world blurs. The LA-7 screams downward at nearly 400 miles per hour. Below, Kittel rolls to evade, but he's half a second too late. Kozhedub fires a burst. The German fighter's wing shatters. The plane tumbles end over end before exploding in a blossom of fire that disappears into the snowfields below.
One less, Kozhedub mutters, his voice calm, for Stalingrad.
A few miles east, Marshal Alexander Pokryshkin, now flying a Yak-9, leads his own flight over the front lines near Warsaw. His squadron, part of the elite 9th Guards Fighter Division, has earned a reputation the Germans both respect and fear. The Yak-3s are fat, light, and agile. Stripped of everything unnecessary, they turn tighter than anything the Luftwaffe can field now. Pokryshkin's radio crackles. Contact 2 o'clock high, FW-190s and 109s, maybe 15. He grins beneath his mask. Good, more targets than bullets. The Yak-3s dive. The Luftwaffe breaks formation. For the first time in years, German pilots fight over their own soil. Outnumbered, outproduced, outflown. Pokryshkin's guns roar, tearing into a Bf-109G that disintegrates instantly. He rolls through the debris, climbs into a vertical loop, and drops onto the tail of another. You can't outrun what's coming, he whispers. He fires again. Flames erupt from the engine, the German pilot bailing out into the frozen wind. Below them, Soviet tanks roll across the Vistula. Columns of smoke raise from burning towns. The war that began with Blitzkrieg in 1939 now moves in reverse, the Red Army advancing with unstoppable momentum. But in the sky, the fight remains personal. Every duel is a test of nerve, skill, and endurance. Two men locked in combat so close they can see each other's eye. Kozhedub later writes in his logbook, "When you fight a German ace, you feel his experience in the air, like dueling a swordsman. But the difference is this: he fights for glory. I fight for home." February 1945, over Berlin's approaches. German airfields are in ruins, fuel is scarce. Most young pilots now have fewer than 20 hours of flight training before combat. Yet some veterans still climb into their machines, unwilling to surrender. Pokryshkin's division encounters a desperate Luftwaffe formation near Kustrin, a dozen FW-190s attempting to intercept Soviet bombers bound for the city. The Russians dive in from above, engines screaming, guns blazing. The German formation shatters. Within minutes, the sky becomes a graveyard of falling metal and parachutes. Pokryshkin circles once more through the smoke, his radio silent now. He watches the enemy burning in the clouds below. They called themselves eagles, he says quietly, but every eagle falls eventually. He turns his yak toward the west, the radio crackles again, a single word. Berlin! The final hunt has begun. That night, in the flickering light of a field tent, Kozhedub sits beside his ground crew, his face streaked with oil. On the table beside him, a flask, a map, and a list of his confirmed victories. 62 kills, the highest scoring Allied fighter ace of the war. He doesn't boast, he doesn't smile.
Tomorrow, he says, we fly again. Outside, the snow falls silently over a continent that has bled for 4 years. In the frozen air above Europe, the Red Falcons have claimed the sky. But they know, before the war ends, they'll have to fly through hell one more time. April 25th, 1945. The skies above Berlin. The city below is dying. Smoke rises from 1,000 fires. Buildings burn like torches along the Spree. Soviet artillery shells crash into the suburbs in an endless rhythm, thunder rolling from the east. Above the ruins, a gray sky churns with contrails. The Luftwaffe is almost gone, but not dead. In the chaos of collapse, a handful of German pilots, the last survivors of the once mighty Jagdgeschwader, still take off from makeshift airstrips, fighting on with empty tanks and fading hope. Among them is Lieutenant Karl-Heinz Hoffmann, barely 22, flying an FW-190D9. the long-nosed Dora, one of Germany's last attempts to claw back control of the air. His orders are simple: intercept Soviet fighters approaching the city, protect what's left of Berlin's supply convoys. He knows it's hopeless, he flies anyway. To the east, Colonel Ivan Kozhedub and his wingman climb through a bank of gray cloud in their La-7s. Below, Berlin sprawls like a burning wound across the horizon. The smell of smoke even reaches the cockpit. The radio crackles with chatter from bomber squadrons below, but Kozhedub tunes it out. His focus narrows to a single instinct: hunt, survive, protect the men on the ground. Stay sharp, he tells his wingman. The Germans still have teeth. Seconds later, his warning proves right. A pair of Fw 190Ds burst from the clouds, sleek Vatapis, diving straight for them. Cannon shells flash past Kozhedub's canopy. He rolls left, countering with a burst that narrowly misses. The Dora screams overhead, climbing away with the kind of power that only desperation can summon. "I see him," his wingman yells, but Kozhedub already has. He pushes the throttle forward. The LA-7 surges like a living thing. He climbs after the German, staying low beneath the tail, the sun directly behind him. The Dora banks left, then right, trying to shake him. Kozhedub mirrors every move, every roll. Both planes spiral upward through smoke and sunlight, locked together, predator and prey. At 18,000 feet, the German stalls. Kozhedub fires. The cannons spit fire, a short, disciplined burst. Tracers punch through the Dora's fuselage. The aircraft jerks violently, trailing smoke, then bursts into flame. Kozhedub watches as the burning wreckage falls, spinning through the clouds toward the inferno below. "Too young," he mutters. They send boys now." Moments later, his radio crackles again. "Multiple contacts, high altitude, Me-262s coming in fast." Kozhedub squints at the western horizon. Distant silver streaks cut across the clouds. Messerschmitt Me-162 jet fighters, the world's first operational jets. Even at a glance, he can tell how fast they're moving, twice the speed of anything else in the sky. It's the Luftwaffe's final gamble. He tightens his harness, breath steady. "They may be faster," he says quietly, "but they still have to fight." The first Me-262 roars past him in a blur, its jet engines howling. The shockwave rocks his LA-7. He dives instinctively, trying to predict the jet's arc. The 262 turns, not gracefully but wide, clumsy at low speeds. That's its weakness. Kozhedub climbs sharply, cutting across its turn. The jet overshoots, and for a brief moment, it's in his gun sight. He fires. Once, twice. Tracers streak ahead, one striking the jet's right engine. Flames burst from the nacelle. The Me-262 tumbles out of control, trailing smoke as the pilot ejects. "Even steel can bleed," Kozhedub mutters, his heart pounding. On the ground below, Soviet troops cheer as the dogfight unfolds overhead, streaks of red and white tracer fire crisscrossing the gray Berlin sky. For the soldiers pinned in rubble and mud, the sight of those red-starred fighters brings something deeper than victory. It brings vindication. 4 years ago, the Luftwaffe had ruled the air. Their bombers burned Moscow and Stalingrad. Their fighters slaughtered Soviet pilots before they could even take off. Now the tables are turned. The Red Air Force commands the sky above Berlin, and every German aircraft that dares to rise is cut down in flames. That afternoon, Kozhedub lands at a captured airstrip outside Kustrin. Mechanics rush to meet him, shouting congratulations. Another Me-262 kill confirmed, the second jet shot down by a piston-engine fighter. He removes his goggles, his face streaked with soot. "The war is ending," one mechanic says. "You've done it, Comrade Colonel." Kozhedub looks west, where the sun dips behind the black smoke of Berlin. "No," he replies quietly. "The killing ends, but what we've done, that never ends." May 8th, 1945, Victory Day. Across the smoldering ruins of Europe, silence finally falls. The sky over Berlin is empty for the first time in years. In that silence, men like Pokryshkin and Kozhedub stand beside their machines, the Yaks and Lavochkins that carried them through fire and frost, and remember the friends who never came home. Their names, once whispered in fear by the Luftwaffe, now become legend. The Red Falcons, hunters who rose from the ashes of defeat to rule the skies of war's most brutal front. And in the fading roar of engines, one truth remains eternal. In the war for the sky, skill wins battles, but courage wins the world. Summer, 1946. Kubinka Air Base, Moscow. The war is over, but the sound of engines still fills the morning air. On the edge of the airfield, beneath a hangar streaked with oil and sunlight, a row of battered Yaks and Lavochkins sit silent, their red stars faded, their wings scarred. Colonel Ivan Kozhedub walks slowly between them, his hands clasped behind his back. He runs his fingers along the chipped paint of his LA-7, the same aircraft he flew through the smoke of Berlin. Mechanics have offered to restore it for display, but he refused. "Leave the scars," he said. "They tell the truth." A few hangars away, Marshal Alexander Pokryshkin leans over a desk covered with maps, his uniform crisp, his expression distant. He's designing new flight training doctrines, turning years of blood and improvisation into official Soviet air strategy. He pauses, looking out toward the runway where young cadets taxi Yak-9s into position. Their engines roar with the same promise he once felt at 22, before Kursk, before the Dniester, before he knew what courage would cost. "They fly higher than we ever did," he murmurs, "and they will never know how much it took to get there." Outside, Kozhedub watches one of the cadets take off, a clean, perfect climb into the blue. He lights a cigarette, squinting into the sun. Behind him, a young pilot approaches, barely more than a boy. His uniform is new, his boots polished. He salutes sharply. "Comrade Colonel, they say you shot down 62 enemy aircraft. Is it true?" Kozhedub smiles faintly, smoke curling from his lips. "It's true that I fought 62 times. The rest is just paperwork." The boy hesitates, then asks quietly, "Were you ever afraid?" Kozhedub looks toward the horizon, where the sky stretches endless and clear. "Always," he says, "every time. Fear is the compass that tells you you're still alive." He flicks the cigarette away, watching the ash scatter on the wind. But when you fly for something greater than yourself, for the men below, for the ones who didn't come back, fear becomes your fuel. Berlin, 1965. Two men stand beside a memorial stone engraved with names from both sides, Soviet and German. Among the crowd are veterans, pilots, and families. The air is still, the city rebuilt but haunted. An older Kozhedub and a gray-haired Gerhard Barkhorn, once enemies, exchange a quiet handshake. No words, just a nod between men who once measured each other by the split second of a gun sight. A German journalist approaches them, notebook in hand. "You fought against each other. What did you think of your enemy?" Kozhedub glances up at the sky, calm now, a soft summer blue. "He was never my enemy," he says, "only my mirror. We both flew because we had to. The war decided which one of us landed." Barkhorn nods slowly, and the sky remembers us both. Moscow, the 1970s. A new generation of MiGs roars across the horizon, contrails streaking white against the heavens. In classrooms, Soviet cadets study maneuvers first practiced by Pokryshkin and Kozhedub, slashing climbs, vertical dives, wingman tactics born from desperation. The Red Air Force that once fought for survival now commands the skies of the Cold War. Its foundations are written in the logbooks of men who flew with frost on their wings and death in their mirrors. And though the jets fly faster, higher, deadlier, the lessons remain the same. Stay disciplined, stay calm, protect the man beside you, never stop climbing. In the museum at Monino, the La-7 that Kozhedub flew over Berlin sits on display. Its red star gleams under the lights. Beneath it, a plaque reads, "This aircraft flew 330 missions and never fell in defeat. Pilot Ivan Nikitovich Kozhedub, hero of the Soviet Union, X-3." Visitors stand quietly before it. Some whisper, others simply stare, imagining the roar of its engine, the flash of its cannons, the smell of oil and fire in the sky. The docent tells them he was the top-scoring Allied ace of the war, but when asked what victory meant, he said only this: "That I lived." Outside, the sky stretches infinite and silent, the same sky that once burned over Kursk, over the Dniester, over Berlin. Somewhere in its endless expanse, the ghosts of the Yak and the Fw still circle each other, locked forever in that eternal duel between freedom and fury, courage and fear, men and the machines they made to touch the heavens. Because wars end, empires fall. But the sky never forgets.